Hello, everyone. Hello. We're happy to see you here today online. Hello. If you have possibility, please turn on your camera. We want to see you. And we really would like you to write us in the chat where you came from which country are you, we know that it's the end of school year. It's quite a hard time for everyone, but we are very happy that you are together with us. We will have, as always, we will have recording of our sessions. So if some of your colleagues didn't have possibility to be here today, we can always listen to recording. So we have people, wow, we have from Mexico City, we have from Slovakia, we have today people from South Africa and Canada and Vietnam and Romania. Hello. I'm just trying to read for all of you. It's really nice to have everyone because today we have a very special topic. We will be talking about multilingualism. So it's great to have different experiences, and we will also be willing to hear more from you. What are your thoughts about it, and what are your experiences? Me, myself, I'm Indra. I'm from Lithuania. I'm part of our project, Citizen of a World team. And I'm also here today as a listener to listen and to learn from our speaker. But first of all, while we are waiting for all the other people to join us who are coming, I would like to share a little bit about our project because it's the second year as we are doing this project, and we would like to share a little bit more about it. So I have some little slides here. Oh, let's see. I hope it's working. Okay. So we, as you probably know, together one school from Lithuania, Montessori Institute, Prague, Monte Plus Teacher Institute, Montessori Teachers Training Institute from Slovakia, and two elementary schools, Jolly Homeschool from Slovakia and Andilek Elementary, not just elementary, but let's focus today like now, from Czech Republic, from Prague. We all are partners in our project, which is called Citizen of a World Guidelines on Key Competences Building in Montessori Elementary Classroom. So most of you, they see not the first time, we see your faces, and we know that you already participated in some of our activities. But for the ones who are first time here, we would like to tell that the main goal, of our project is to showcase how Montessori elementary education aligns with European Union key competences. And not every one of us maybe are familiar with these European Union competences for lifelong learning. And as you see in this picture, the book of Maria Montessori, Citizen of a World, we think that all of these readings that are in this book are really related to what we call European Union values, because Maria Montessori had a vision and saw a child and saw humanity as a nazione unica, and as a child, as a citizen of a world. The very similar situation we have now in European Union, we see in the same way, and that's why European Union had 8 key competences that should everyone have as a future creators of our humanity. Here you can see the whole list, and if you are following our project activities. You can see that we already had an online meeting and we talked about literacy, about numeric, scientific, and engineering skills. We had a meeting about digital competence, about active citizenship. We had a meeting with AMI trainer Alan about cultural awareness. And today we will be diving into multilingualism. But probably you can think like, why, Indra, are you sharing all of these things, to this evening? So it is because we would like you to know that you can always participate in our project. It's not something that we are doing hiding somewhere in a hole or, under the closed doors, but you can always participate, and we have some options how you can do it. So of course you can always participate in our surveys. We are sending them to you every time after our community conversations. You can join online as you are doing right now, or you can listen recording. This is for the ones who will be listening to the recording after this meeting. Our seminars and our free webinars, because we are focusing on each of them on particular competence, just for you to understand better that you are doing a lot of things in the classroom and you are really helping children to build these competences. You can also meet with our team and share your community needs. And we are almost on the finish line with our guidelines and digital resources that we will be sharing with all of you for free. It will be accessible and digital, and you can download them and use them. And we will announce it very loud when it will be ready. But today we have a very special invitation for you, and you can see under our beautiful picture of our team, you can see what is written below, that on 29th of November we will be organizing a huge event for Montessori elementary teachers that will be called Online International Conference about Elementary Child as a Citizen of the World. And we are almost, let's say, done with the whole structure and program of this conference, but we would like to invite you to become part of our conference and to share what are your needs, what are your thoughts, what you want to hear during this conference. So I'm sending you right now link to our Google form where you can fill in what topics you want to hear, because we thought that it's not possible just for us to decide what we want to do, but we also would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What are the challenges? What are the main struggles you want to hear? Because we would like to create a space where we can share strategies with you, and we can share some methods that can be useful for your everyday classroom life, and for you, of course, as a teacher. So feel free to share. If somebody is joining from your phone and it's hard for you to open the link and go, you can just write in the chat. We will copy all of your ideas, and we will just make a list of all of them, and we will try to follow them and to find speakers who can, if not us or if not you, we can always find speakers who can help us to understand better how to navigate in our struggles and how to share ideas together. So this is the thing, how we are inviting you to participate in this project. And as I already told you, we have a lot of recordings already from past community conversations that you can find in our website. And we had already 6 of them. And today is the time for a lucky number 7. And what do we have today? And we have today the amazing speaker, the most probably experienced person I know for now in multilingualism and bilingualism in Montessori elementary classrooms. Her name is Lucie Urbančíková. She had experience of being L2 teacher in Montessori Elementary School. She is one of the main person who created a huge and valuable resource called Bilingual Montessori Guidelines. And she's the one who made the final all the editing. So she has a lot of not just practical experience, but also theoretical understanding about this topic. And today she is helping us to dive into multilingualism. I even cannot tell it, in the elementary Montessori classroom in the context of European Union competences. So the stage is yours, Lucie. We are very happy to hear it. If some of you have any questions, please write them in the chat. So we will copy all of them and we will discuss after Lucie's presentation.
Thank you, Indra, for your amazing introduction. And now I feel a little bit of pressure to live up to what you mentioned, but I'll do my best. And let's just get started. So we use the time as effectively as possible, and also so we have enough time for questions and discussion at the end. So thank you for coming to this community conversations on the topic of multilingualism in the elementary Montessori classrooms in the context of the EU key competencies. Just really, really briefly, addition to the introduction there was, just to add a perspective from which I'll be approaching the multilingualism, meaning my experience with the languages. So from the perspective of the languages, I was born and raised in the Czech Republic. And these are the languages I am familiar with to different extent. The thicker the line, the more proficient I am. I'll take it chronologically. German for 11 years, Russian for 4 years, then French for, I think that was 8 or 9. I added Spanish, and actually there was one more, 2 years of Latin. Even though this was the shortest time I spent with a language, it was definitely the most memorable because that was the language I struggled with the most. And actually that's related to the topic today. The reason why Latin was so challenging for me, because it's not a living language. I could not communicate with that language with others. So that's definitely one aspect of languages which we will discuss today. I got my bachelor's and master's in the US, so there is the experience or deeper or more thorough experience with English. And related to the topic of multilingualism, for about 10 years, I worked not only as an English teacher in different settings, but also as an outdoor tour guide, visiting very different cultures where I not always spoke the language, such as Pakistan, Tanzania, learning a little bit of Swahili, and many other countries. So this, for me, is also an important part of my linguistic experience. I've been teaching English since 2003 in various settings, starting with toddlers, ending up with top managers. And as Indra mentioned, working with children 6 to 12 and 12 to 15 is my main focus currently. What I have enjoyed greatly is exploring all different aspects affecting learning foreign and second languages. Today, we will not be making the distinction, even though there is a big distinction between second language, foreign language. But today, we will be looking at languages in general. We don't necessarily need to know the context of the language the children are acquiring. My experience in Montessori, I've been exploring the Montessori approach since 2012, and I haven't stopped yet. And the last but not least, what I find as a very important piece of my linguistic puzzle is being a member of the bilingual Montessori team and the 3-year project, which ended this January. And we plan on carrying this experience on. So this is really briefly about me. Now let's look at the structure of this webinar. So you feel oriented, because feeling oriented is one of our main needs, and I will satisfy it in a second. Also, I would like to ask you to have a pen and a piece of paper handy. It can be a scrap paper, because here and there I will ask you some questions for you to think about them. You will not have to share anything, but in terms of the learning process, and for you to be more involved with the topic, it would be great if you could write some notes here and there. So, what is my goal for this webinar? Together with you, I would like to explore how multilingualism, as defined by the EU key competencies for lifelong learning, intersects with the Montessori elementary approach. As the goal of this project is to look at both the EU competencies and the Montessori elementary approach, during this talk, I will talk more about the EU perspective and the Montessori, just matching it, because this is what I see is the goal of this project, is to show that Maria Montessori was such a visionary that what she planned is not only compatible, but fully satisfies the requirements of the key competencies, which I see is very important when we're talking with other constituents, such as parents, local authorities, and so on, that Montessori is not something that's kind of out of the loop or on the outskirts, but that it's actually the core values are very similar. But we will have a chance to discuss that a little more. Secondly, I would like to describe the EU concepts related to languages or multilingualism in general. And last but not least, to ponder upon how Montessori approach aligns with the EU multilingual competence. And how are we going to go about it? We will explore the multilingualism key competence from 3 different perspectives. The first one is the institutional perspective, where we will look at a little more in depth what does the multilingualism entail from the EU perspective and other EU documents. And I know that there are many of you who are not based in the European Union, but I think that there are some things that are very inspiring for countries also outside of the EU. So I have it in mind that not everyone is based in EU, but I still think that there could be some interesting information for you to gather from this talk. The second perspective will be the cultural perspective, and the last one, the individual perspective. So we will go from the institutions to the society to the individuals, and how each of these entities interact with the topic of multilingualism. So let's get started with the institutional perspective. You know these competencies, Indra introduced them at the beginning, so there is no need to discuss them more at length. But there's one thing I would like to add, and I know that this was mentioned by the previous speakers within this project, that even though these key competencies are listed and described, many of them overlap. So today, as we speak about languages, it definitely overlaps with the citizenship competence, as well as the cultural awareness and expression. So for me, it's not excluding it, but really describing what is there and how these competencies comply with each other. And now what I see is very, very important to be clear on the terminology so we get aligned. And this is the first time I would like to ask you to take a pen and piece of paper. And I will give you about 30 seconds. Please try to write answer to this question. What, in your opinion, is a competence? So 30 seconds, take your time. Okay. So now let's see whether your definition of a competence matches with how this framework sees a competence or defines a competence. First, and very, very important thing, that a competence is a set, and is a set of knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and abilities. So why is this division or this description very important? When working with the schools, and when I say the schools, I mean both, of course, the children, but from the perspective of creating school curricula, it's very important that the staff and administrators understand that the learning process happens uh, at different or in different areas at different levels, and these are the main 5 levels. Just to capture the meaning really quickly of these terms. So knowledge, I think this is maybe the easiest one to describe, the easiest aspect of a competence, that it's what a person knows. So in order to be able to do something, we need to know some facts. This is what I see sometimes difference in importance between the Montessori setting and the non-Montessori setting, that sometimes the knowledge is set aside a little bit, saying that the skills are more important. I think this is the discussion, chicken or the egg. I think both are very important, but the key thing is that without knowledge, we cannot practice the skill. Unless I know that heavy objects don't float on water, that they sink, then I cannot practice a skill of uh, just can think of it in right now for this example, but knowledge is really important. But knowledge has to go hand in hand with the skills. So what person can do and involve the knowledge they have. Here on the screen, you also have in the cursive, how does the given aspect of a competence translate or is seen in the language learning process. So we have the knowledge, the skills. We know what we need to know something. We need to know how to use it, what we can do with it. then we need to be aware how a person approaches a task or how the person approaches people, and those are attitudes. These mindsets and dispositions are very heavily influenced, of course, by family and the social group of the people or of the students, and of course, the school has a big impact on this attitudes of the students, but it's definitely sharing the learning process with other constituents in the life of the children. Values is the fourth aspect of a competence, and that's what a person believes in and stands for. The same way as attitudes, the values are definitely very strongly influenced by the family, by the social group of the children. And we need to work very carefully with these when we are trying to enhance these aspects of competence with the children. And the last aspect of a competence are the abilities. So that's what a person is capable of. The abilities are also given, and the children, we are born with some abilities. That does not mean we cannot change them, that we cannot expand on them, but the abilities are the one aspect of a competence that we just come with. So when we are looking at the 5 aspects of a competence, then each of the aspect needs to be approached differently, yet all of them should be present in our language education, and not only language education, just in the education we are preparing for our children. So for the math-minded people, here is a short equation. And the reason why I'm emphasizing the equation is that these it's very important for both the children, the parents, and the staff, the teachers, and the school administration to understand this complexity of the learning process. And also, this is something I realized I did not mention at the very beginning, that besides me working in the classroom very intensively with the children, I'm also what is called here in the Czech Republic curriculum coordinator, because in the Czech Republic we have a quite special educational system which is two-tier system, where the Czech Ministry of Education says you have to, the children at certain age, they need to leave with certain or given competencies, and it's up to the school to decide how they're going to go about reaching those competency outcomes. And this is so each school has to go through this process, and for me it's really fascinating to see how having the common language at the school and understanding the key terms the same way for the given school, how much it influences the learning process and the teaching process from the perspective of the teachers. So this is why I had a great need to go through this maybe a little lengthy introduction, but as I said, I feel this is really, really important. So we're done with the groundwork. And let's look at the EU definition of multilingual competence. And it's very short. It's the ability to use different languages appropriately and effectively for communication. What I really like about this definition is that there is no emphasis on accuracy. It's about fluency and the ability to use the languages. And this is something that I observe mainly from the side of the parents, which very strongly impacts the teachers, because at least my generation here in Central Europe, we were mortified to speak foreign languages because we were afraid to make mistakes. And along with that, making a mistake meant to us that the other side, the partner at speech, will not understand us. So this is something that within the Czech linguistic context, and slowly but surely, with the younger generations, we are trying to get rid of the stigma that it's not necessarily crucial to speak perfectly grammatically correctly, but it's important to speak and to communicate. Maybe you have it slightly differently with your cultures, with your where you're at, but this is definitely both the institutional perspective and the cultural perspective of this competence. But let's get back to the EU definition of this competence. What does it include? It includes the linguistic repertoire, ideally knowing more than one language, even at different levels of proficiency. And we will discuss how it may look like, or how what the implications of this are in a bit. It includes the intercultural awareness. Remember when I talked about the culture EU competence, how the multilingual overlap. So this is one specific area where knowing a language, we don't learn the language only. We learn the culture that is behind it. I just recalled this was in the early 80s, late 80s. I don't know if you ever heard of the language Esperanto. Esperanto was a language, it actually still exists, but very, very few people speak it. And it was before the fall of communism in Central Europe, where there were some linguists very enthusiastic about creating a language which would be international language, or such a lingua franca, where the European languages were put together, and there were parts of different parts of the different languages put together, that you wouldn't have to necessarily learn the entire language, but you were able to use part of your language. And it was very strange to me. I remember when one of my classmates said, "Oh, I'm studying Esperanto." And to me, what was missing is the culture behind it, because for me, language is about communication among people. And when we take the people and the culture behind it away, that's something that's for me, there's a huge missing piece. So the cultural awareness, the language awareness and strategies. Uh, this is my great hobby, but I definitely understand that it's not a hobby that everyone has, especially that the students don't necessarily have it, is reflecting on how language works, or how languages work, and how similar or different structures they have. So that's more of the metacognitive perspective. And we mentioned attitudes already, ideally for the learners to be curious and to respect other languages and other speakers. And using the word respect is again connecting it to the cultural competence. So this is the definition of the multilingual competence by the EU. But there is one more what I think, very important document, which is called the CEFR. And what does it stand for? It stands for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And this is the moment when I know that there are many countries outside of the EU, if I'm not mistaken, including Philippines, for example, which are very distant from us, that use this framework as a base for creating the language curriculum. Very brief, one slide introduction of this framework. First, as you look at the picture, you can see that the language learning process is divided into 6 different levels with 3 different levels with 6 sub-levels, starting with basic user, independent user, and proficient user, where this structure very much helps managing and planning the learning processes that are not necessarily immersion based. But even with the immersion, it's really good to have some point of reference. But for, I would say, any other approach, it's really important to have a framework of reference, and CEFR is definitely one of them. Just some basic facts. This CEFR is regulated by the Council of Europe, and as I mentioned, it's used across Europe and other parts of the world. And what is really, really crucial, at least I see it, that it is applicable to all languages. It's not about English only, not about German, not about French, the main languages here in Europe, but it's applicable to all languages. And looking at what stands behind this framework is this is the very key: clear levels of progression. And again, not only important for the teachers, but also for the parents to be able to monitor to see how the child progresses. And when we talk about older students, meaning for me, adolescents 12 to 15, they become quite familiar with this framework, and they can also self-assess themselves to see the progress they're making. Speaking of the students and the self-assessment, this is really something that the CEFR works with very explicitly, and the knowledge of a language is described in many different ways. And for the students, for the self-assessment, it's through I can statements. So it's not about I can use the present perfect. No, I can talk about situations in the past that are connected to today. So it's a different perspective. It's not the linguist's perspective on a language, but the user perspective of a language. It's got a very strong intercultural dimension. And what is new as of 2020 is that there is a new skill added to the list, which includes mediation. The first time when I saw this aspect of the new updated or upgraded, revised, better word, revised CEFR is, I was thinking mediation. Well, why do I need to know how to mediate a conflict between two people? But when I dug deeper, I realized that it's not about bringing two parties together to mediate in that sense of the word, but it's mediation different of content between different languages. So it's not about translations necessarily, but about mediation. And so you have a better understanding. I prepared a table which covers the new revised version of the CEFR. And what's the huge change between the 2001 version, which was the first time it was published, the CEFR, that there is a shift from separate language skills such as understanding, speaking, reading, and writing to integrated language activities. And here is the new perspective on the language learning. So there are the reception activities, such as oral comprehension and reading comprehension, production, oral production, when I'm, for example, describing a picture, or written production when I'm sharing my ideas in writing. Then the next level or next area is interaction. And this is very interesting that after the pandemics, there has been an online interaction added here as well, which is both oral and written as kind of border, or not to say border, but transitioning from the oral in-person discussions to the written correspondence, so online being in between, and the mediations. And here, this is what I mentioned. It's not about mediating, bringing two parties to agreement, but mediating concepts, mediating the communication process, and mediating texts. For me, mediation is the most challenging skill because it's not translation. Because with mediation, we immediately put our filter, our knowledge into the process. So we really need to be able to use our knowledge and at the same time try to be impartial when mediating, whether it's the concepts or the texts. So the CEFR is kind of like an I don't want to say offspring, but is an additional structure that takes the EU multilingual competence and brings it to closer to the people, and helps to create system which supports the process of language learning. Now, how does Montessori embody these institutional goals? Again, this is my perspective based on my understanding and my experience working in the Montessori setting. And of course, there could be many other added, but these are the ones I see as the most important ones. Maria Montessori's vision was deeply cosmic and global. So related to that was multilingualism supported this goal of being able to see in the interconnectedness of the world. So these two things very closely related. Next, the Montessori classrooms are designed for collaborative, respectful communication in mixed age and mixed cultural groups. This is going back to if we use the CEFR, or if we imagine how the CEFR table I shared a little while ago looked like, that in the Montessori classroom, the children can use the language abilities independently. They can go and do a survey in the classroom to collect information. They can start writing a short book or a poem, anything. So it's not, there's no such a big need for the students to be led by an adult. By saying this, there's a B to it. The children are able to do this with other languages once they reach a certain level of proficiency, which is for me like the third the end of the second level, meaning at the end of A2 level, B1, that's the time when children are able to communicate the content they think of. And the last one, the Montessori Cosmic Education offers a rich platform for integrating language and cultural diversity. Again, I know that we're going in circles around the same topics, but I think that it's very important to be aware of what the setting of the Montessori environment provides us, and that it's fully compatible with the EU perspective. Here I try to bring the two perspectives together, meaning the EU and the Montessori, and try to put together, for me, the institutional takeaway is, even if Montessori school explicitly don't follow the CEFR or the EU frameworks directly, they can draw strength and legitimacy for this alignment. I know I mentioned it several times, and I know that I will keep mentioning it again and again, that it's what I see a huge advantage, being able to describe what we do in the Montessori setting, using terms that majority or maybe larger group of people understand, without changing or alternating or redoing what we do in the Montessori setting. So using the terms known to more people and describe what is happening in the Montessori setting. So what does it show? That Montessori is not only relevant today, but definitely she has been, or she was, an incredible visionary. It helps, using these frameworks, helps Montessorians to communicate their value to external stakeholders, and it provides a common ground to advocate for multilingualism as a core educational goal. And here I would add what we've already mentioned, but just to bring it up again, that we do not have to strive for full proficiency in all the languages that children are learning. It's just being able to understand the language, being aware of the language is very important. And this note takes us to the cultural perspective. And now I will ask you to take your pen and paper again, and I will ask you to answer this question. Why should we encourage learning other languages when English is already the global lingua franca? So 30 seconds, and put your thoughts on the paper. Okay. So let's think about this question for a little while. When I was preparing this webinar, I was thinking really very hard about how to approach the cultural perspective. And this question came to my mind, which is something that I keep thinking about quite a bit, because on one hand, English is the current lingua franca, and as a matter of fact, there are more L2 or foreign language English speakers in the world than native speakers. So really, actually, English is now not necessarily in the hands of native speakers. And so why should we encourage learning other languages? I came up with, I think, 3 points, which I find, yes, 3 points, which I find the most important from the culture perspective. First of all, languages are gateways to culture and perspective. I already touched upon it a little bit when I talked about at the very beginning about Latin, and also about the language of the artificial language of Esperanto. Because each language carries the cultural codes, the world views, and the social practices. While learning a language, these 3 aspects we learn at the same time. And to learn a language is for me, is as if I was invited into the other culture's way of seeing and being. So this goes far more behind the words, and it goes to uncovering the culture that's behind it. Here, for me, I have many very strong memories of different situations when I traveled around the world. And for example, I just recall one situation. This was in Pakistan, when I was translating from English to the members of the group. And at one moment, I was translating. The tour guide said, "Oh, here is the tea for you," and I translated it as "Atademate chai." And I'll I still now see, even though it's many many years ago, the shocked eyes of the tour guide. He was like, "Chai? You said chai?" Because in Pakistani, in Urdu, they also use uh, the word chai. And suddenly, just the fact that he understood a word that we use in the Czech language, and it had the same meaning, just that situation suddenly brought us so much closer together. Um, so this is one example of a situation where it's brings a different perspective in the communication. And I just recalled one more situation. This was in Venezuela, when we were riding a small bus, and the local guide was saying in Spanish that there are plantations, there are plátanos plantations. And I translated it as banana plantations. And he turned around and he looked at me. He's like, "Not bananas, plátanos." And I had to explain to him that in Czech we have only one term for bananas. But in Venezuela, in Spanish, they had bananas and plátanos. Bananas being like the fruit, like eat the way we're used to peeling it, eating it as a fruit. But plátanos is a special type of bananas, which is treated more like potatoes. You boil them in the skin or you fry them. So after I explained to him that we don't have that term, and that I had to explain to the Czech tourist that it's kind of like the potato bananas, then he calmed down, and he was happy with my explanation. So just these 2 small examples for me are a demonstration how languages are the gateways to culture and the different perspectives. The second answer or perspective on this question is that language plays a crucial role in identity and belonging. And that identity and belonging is a form of peace education. Uh, it's again traveling and suddenly hearing in the uh, place that you would not expect to hear a fluent Czech speaker speaking, such as on the plane from a local or a small airport in Venezuela, then suddenly it really creates a very strong bond. And it's not only bond within the same language, but it's also bond with languages that either I know or are very similar to the languages I speak. One example for all, the Czech and Slovak languages are very similar. We can understand each other really well. And again, that sense of belonging uh, is supports uh, this feeling of identity. Uh, Going back to the English question, even if English is globally widespread, mother tongues and heritage languages are central to identity. Uh, and this identity, for me, is another example from like my traveling experience. Uh, is, for example, visiting France and being in uh, a very small village where they produced very special plums or products from plums. They did amazing things with them. And when I approached the locals in English, they were kind of very cold. They were taken back. But when I said, okay, I'll just try it in French because I really would like to get some more information from them, suddenly you saw the switch. I was the same person, they were the same person, but just the language really connected us. And for me, as the visitor, I got so much more information from the locals because they were able to use their language and they describe the things how they're used to it. And I filtered it and I was able to understand it much better than if they were describing it in English. And going back to the classroom, that when we allow, not only allow, but support multiple languages in the classroom, uh, and what is important, even if they're not taught formally, we really send a very strong message that the culture of the speaker matters, and that not everyone, or we are not expected to assimilate into one dominant mode. And the last aspect, that language learning should be a cultural experience, not just academic content. Uh, we keep talking about, or I keep talking about the cultural aspect repeatedly, and here I cannot help it, but I have to do it again. That as we learn the language, we explore the language through using different greetings, song, folk tales, and so on, which makes the culture come alive. And being exposed to the culture of the language, students are more likely to develop motivation and appreciation when they feel emotionally connected to the people who speak the language. And thinking of the elementary children, one thing I know, at least the children I work with, are really very interested in those things that some things are said differently in different languages, such as just simple example with the greetings. Uh, in Czech, we say dobrý den, literal translation, good day. Well, in English, it sounds really awkward because it's not used when I'm greeting someone. When I'm leaving and I'm saying, oh, have a good day, that's different. But when I walk in, and I would never say good day. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And children, elementary children, my experience, are collectors of these nuances and the differences, and they really like to test the adults and their parents on these nuances quite a bit. So the cultural takeaway, the way I see it, what connects the EU multilingual competence with the Montessori, that the languages are gateways to culture and perspectives. This directly aligns with the Montessori concept of the cosmic task and helps them with finding their role and responsibility toward the world. Secondly, the language plays a crucial role in identity and belonging, and thus is a form of peace education. Because if we understand each other, then we don't have to argue or, what worse, fight with each other. And the language learning should be a cultural experience. And this experiential approach builds the cultural competence, not just the linguistic ability. So this was the cultural perspective. And now the last part is the personal perspective. And this is the last time I will ask you to take a pen and paper and for 30 seconds try to think about and write down some bullet points, answers to this question. How does learning multiple languages nurture a whole person development? I'm sure that you've heard this question many times, and you are very well aware of the aspects that uh, enhance the development of our brain or the human potential and what the role languages play in this process. And I definitely don't want to go into details here, but I would like to go a step further. But in order to make the step further, I feel that it's important to list the main aspects that are the key uh, benefits of learning languages. So first of all, learning languages strengthens cognition through flexible thinking across the different languages, sharpens perception and tuning into linguistic and cultural nuances. Uh, Here, what came to my mind, the linguistic and cultural nuances. When I lived in the U.S., I spent 3 years in Virginia, and then 2 years in New Hampshire. And for me, it's it was it was like an 8-hour drive up north, but the cultural nuances between the area south of the Canadian border and the area surrounding Washington, D.C. Were really interesting to observe. And one situation for all, when I was having lunch with my colleagues up north in New Hampshire, and there was our assistant, who was an amazing woman. She was local. She was born, raised in New Hampshire, and her accent was definitely very thick. And then my supervisor, she was from Michigan, and we were having lunch. And my boss from Michigan, she had a 2 or 3 year-old daughter, and the New Hampshire woman said, does Ellie like Bonnie? And my supervisor from Michigan said, what Bonnie? She doesn't like Bonnie. And the New Hampshire woman kept saying, Bonnie, Barney. And I was there in the middle. And I said, oh, Chris, she means Barney. So I was actually translating from one English to another within one country. So sharpening this perception of the nuances is for me very fun, and it definitely makes our brain think differently, and we use our brain slightly differently. It boosts memory because not only that we manage multiple linguistic systems, but we also have to memorize the vocabulary. So that's definitely boosting memory. It enhances expression, uh, not only in the language we're practicing, but eventually in the other languages as well, because we kind of broaden our horizons of what we can talk about. Cultivates empathy. And last but not least, builds self-worth by affirming identity and personal capabilities. Uh, and here I would say that languages either build self-worth or they, what would be the opposite of that? Uh, make people feel that they're not worth enough. For example, my husband, who does not speak English, he had very big trouble learning it, and he never learned it. And I really can see how he struggles when he has to tell someone, "I don't understand English. I just don't know it." So for me, it's the two sides of the same coin. And the personal takeaway, combining the EU and Montessori approach, uh, looking at the materials Maria Montessori created for the language. When I say the language, I say the language with a purpose, because she created materials for the L1 language, whatever language it is for the L1. For the L2, these materials can be used, and they're efficient, in my experience, to use once the children reach a certain proficiency levels, because otherwise they're just too advanced. But what the Montessori materials do, they help the children to recognize patterns. The ingenious system with the grammar symbols are really a connector between the L1 and L2. And so the Montessori really provides incredibly strong tools which strengthen the language learning process. And last but not least, in a Montessori classroom where the goal is to help the child become who they are and meant to be, multilingualism provides one more pathway to this authenticity and agency. And while saying this is for me a connection to what I feel like it's kind of like a, not, I want to say bonus, but an addition, which does not necessarily fit the topic of the EU competence. But fairly recently, I got a hold of a book by Dr. Biori Kamarian, who is a leading American psycholinguist, and she did an extensive research on understanding bilingualism and multilingualism. And she wrote a book called The Power of Language. And this book is amazing, but I picked three key findings, which hearing about them or reading about them really helped me to understand who am I as a person who speaks more than one language. The first one is what she calls parallel language activation. Uh, bilingual individuals activate both languages simultaneously during language processing. And what is the key finding is that this co-activation occurs even when only one language is being used. So she proved that the previous models that suggested that when I speak English, there's no check happening in my mind, or other languages, that it's not true. So this is one key finding. The second one, language dependent memory. If you speak more languages, I'm sure you've experienced it. I definitely have. And for me, it was great to find out that this is something that's normal, that this does not happen only to me. That her research indicates that the language in which information is encoded affects how it's later retrieved. And the key is that if we speak more than one language, that we recall memories more effectively when the language of recall matches the language in which the memory was formed. And I don't know if you experience this, but I experience this quite often because I do speak quite a bit of English and Czech, and sometimes I have to stop when I'm speaking English and I want to tell you something what happened in the Czech context. Sometimes I have to stop, I have to switch to English to Czech to recall the situation, and then I have to go back to my to my English to be able to produce it. So the language dependent memory. And here comes my absolute favorite. And I for me, this is the end of the personal perspective on language learning. Is the influence on perception and identity. Uh, in her work, she explored how language shapes perception and identity. And this is for me, the key phrase. Bilinguals may experience different emotional responses or self concepts depending on the language in which they are thinking or communicating. I had quite a few feedbacks from people who know me in one or the other context, or even it was like with French and other languages. And when they did not have the experience me speaking a different language, they were shocked. They were telling me, okay, when you speak English, this is how I know you. But when you switch to Czech, it's not only that I don't understand the language, that's not important, but you really act differently. And this is something that Dr. Marianne, I'm really, really grateful for, because the language is culture and it's identity. And it's really hard to separate it. So the last slide, and this is what I would like to conclude this talk on.
Lucie, did we lost you? Okay, while we are waiting for Lucie to join us, I can read this quote that we have in the slide. That language is a roadmap. Oh, we even don't have a slide. Okay, I think that Lucie will join us soon. Now I can share in the chat while we are waiting for Lucie the bilingual Montessori guidebook that was also Lucie was part of this big work happening. So Lucie is back. Hello.
Hello, thank you. I really don't know what happened, but it was perfect timing. I finished my talk and the computer said that was it, but I convinced it that it's not it yet. So thank you very much. I'm really not used to giving talks like this because I like the mentoring approach when we discuss. So, are there any questions which I could answer?
So, first of all, thank you for coming back and thank you for giving us such a wide perspective. Also, talking not just about classroom practice, but also giving perspective about institutional, cultural, and personal views in this multilingualism. Yes, I finally can say that. Okay, and actually, I have one question what I would like to ask you because I saw one of our listeners here wrote about a situation with one Egyptian student that is mixing Egyptian dialect into Syrian one. And my question is also related to that. As a teacher, in a classroom, and when we have children with different bilingual or multilingual contexts, uh, what I can see that we often mix languages when we are speaking. And from you as an expert, in this, I really would like to hear what do you think to what extent is a normal part of a language, and how can Montessori methods support children in navigating and making this multiple making the sense of multiple languages in a natural
Mm-hmm.
respectful way, because as teachers we sometimes start to freak out, maybe when we see a child mixing while
Mm-hmm.
talking or while writing. And what can be your suggestion for us?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for this question. There's actually a special term for the situation you describe. It's called translanguaging. And the translanguaging is a normal situation on the path of the language learning. Some individuals, all children, don't need this, and they skip or they don't use the two languages simultaneously. For example, they would not say, I'm going domu, I'm going home. So using Czech and English. Uh, what I see with these children is that they really, for me, what I see is number one, that they are willing to communicate. And the fact that they use the two languages together is a temporary situation. And when I say temporary, yes, it may take not like one day, it may take some time, but it's really to support the children in the process of communicating. And eventually, they will learn the vocabulary they need to learn, and they will naturally substitute the L2 language or the L1 languages with the L2 terms. So I would not discourage it. And when the child does use the translanguaging, the one thing I always do, whether it's in writing or in speaking, so if the child says, I'm going domu, I say, oh yeah, you're going home. Because the child needs more input because we start to use the language or speak it after a lot of exposure listening to it. So we need to increase the exposure to the words they're not saying in the L2. So we just need to provide them with the experience with that. So that's my take on it. And it's really, it vanishes. If there is a rich language exposure, the translanguaging issues vanish. But as I said, I just want to emphasize that for me, key is that the child is willing to communicate and is not afraid to use the other language to support what they want to say.
Thank you. There is one question in the chat that is also related actually to this topic. Um, Toral, I hope I'm pronouncing good, is asking, based on the topic discussed today, is it okay to add some bilingual or multilingual experiences in a preschool setting? It's okay if we don't have fully or partial immersion programs, because whatever we can expose to children to is helpful. Is my understanding correct?
Uh, Well, I say my understanding is the same. Uh, for me, there are very specific culture or contexts for the language learning process. We need to take into account what are the families of the children, or what is the linguistic background of the families, what's the where the school is placed, whether it's in language open or closed society. For example, Czech is a perfect example of language closed society, because we have everything dubbed. We don't get to hear other languages unless we really want to hear them, as opposed to the Nordic countries where there's no dubbing. People get to hear the languages naturally. And So these are all the pieces that come together and influence the language context that the children are in. So whether it's immersion or any other format, I think it's very beneficial for the children to be exposed to the languages. And also, it's the fact that the children are speaking to me in Czech does not mean I speak Czech back to them, but I react to the Czech because I do understand it. For me, this is rule number one. And again, this is just for me. If it doesn't work, it may not work for everyone. But for me, the fact that the child approaches me, because when we talked about it today, languages are about relationships. So if I say, no, I will talk to you only if you talk to me in English, I'm not establishing the relationship based on which we can work on the linguistic level. So I would say use any model and any format. Also from Andilek, the Montessori school, because it's got a toddler community, CASA, elementary, and adolescent. Speaking with the toddlers guides, we have one Czech and one English guide. And there was when we had a meeting with all the English teachers across the what we call across the building, meaning age year and a half to 15. The toddlers guide said, well, the children advance in the language based on which guide they get attached to. And this is, for me, this is absolutely fascinating. For me, it shows how the relationship plays a crucial role in the language learning process. So even such things play or impact the language learning process.
Thank you.
Yes, it is really, I can also agree the same, because we have bilingual toddler environment, and this is what we see, how we attach to one of the adults. We have a question from Victoria, continuing this um, discussion about AMI digital cards and using them in multiple language versions as a way to facilitate language learning in both L2 as well as L1. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with AMI digital cards, but maybe I know, Lucie, that you are. So
Well, actually, I'm not. I'm not familiar with the digital cards. Sorry, I don't
it's
know what to say to that because I have never seen them.
Yeah, it's not digital, like it's AMI digital website. This is probably
Hmm.
what you meant, Victoria. Yes, from AMI digital website that
Oh,
there are these cards when we can use it in 3 to 6 mostly. Yes, maybe Victoria, you
hmm.
can on your mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's one of the AMI websites. If you go to the AMI site, it has AMI digital with all of the WWs and all of that.
Yes.
And it's an ongoing project to add more languages. So it's done on a volunteer basis, but there are many, many, many cards in many languages. And there are 10 images per page. And you can, it's just a printout. It can be black and white if you don't, or color, you know, you can daily life objects, and then you get into some of the animals and the different elements of science and things like that. So depending on the age of the children and or adults, it's just, I think it's easier when you have exactly the same image and it's in the two or more languages, that it could be helpful, even peer-to-peer learning, if some children know one language more than another, and they can have little games with those images. And I really, it's a wonderful resource that's really not being used enough. And I just encourage people to figure out different ways of using it. There's no direct specific way to use it because it has to be adapted to the countries, to the cultures, to, you know, all of the different circumstances. But I encourage you all to try it and share your experiences with it. And add more languages, because even indigenous, we need to have indigenous languages and more African languages. I want to get Hausa and German and Swahili and, you know, the market languages that Africans speak as a second or third language themselves, even if their L1 is another language. So I think we can offer a lot to the world, even if everyone can't have a Montessori classroom fully. You know, you can't go from zero to a full Montessori environment, but you can use a lot of the principles anyway. So that's why I just find this resource so interesting and would like to have more people share their ways of using it.
Thank you very much for this clarification. I do know this website, but I wasn't sure whether it's like digital, you know, like the digital format. So that's why I said, no, I'm not
you
using
can,
it.
there
Yes.
also exists the digital format, but it's been free for a very long time. So I suggest that you go on before they're starting to consider having a membership be one of the requirements, because like everyone, you know, financial resources are limited in terms of all the scale and the type of
Yes.
work that we all want to do. So, but you know, if it's a one-year membership, that's not very much if you use something like that, but try it out anyway, if you can.
Yes.
I shared the link of this website in the chat so you can all see, and we are very happy because we talked in the last, I think, AMI AGM meeting about that now when we can use AI, you know, to help us to translate them, we will be more accessible to different languages, you know. So this is a really great tool, and thank you, Victoria, for mentioning it.
Thank you.
I
Thank
know
you
that
for doing this work. It's very important. Montessori is multilingual. I mean, it really is one of the best ways to have children live and learn in multilingual children environments. So I think it's really a resource for the 21st century.
Yes, and I would just like, as you mentioned, Victoria, it's a resource for the 21st century, and I would make it a square resource, like even like multiply by looking at the different aspects like these cards can be used for. Just what was running through my head is that using the same pictures for different languages is a way to enter the new language. But then it's very important to make the second step, to expose the children to just one example for all, there will be animals and the dog, it's going to be brown dog. And especially for the 3 to 6 children, it's important to make the second step after they know what is a dog, then to expose them to different photos of different dogs that are not just brown.
Sure.
So this is expanding the vocabulary without learning new words, because they are using the word in different contexts. So this is something that we could actually have a webinar on
Exactly.
how
Yes.
we could use it
Yes.
for our context. So
Okay.
this is something that very much resonates, and
Good
also how to
suggestion.
work with these materials for like with the beginner children or with the more advanced children, because there's again a huge difference in how they work with it, not with the adult, but how they can manage working with these materials on their own. Because my experience with the beginner children, 6 to 9, that it's very hard for them to work with these individual cards, the individual pictures, because they need more structure to it. So this is something that we could expand on, maybe, and maybe we can have a discussion about this sometimes in the future. But I'm mindful of time. Indre, stop me because we could go on forever.
Yes, I see a lot of, new questions, and I think new thoughts are coming up in everybody's, especially when we talk about practical side, of using it. So I would like to share now in the chat one of the surveys we have after each of the community conversations, and what is very important in this survey, that you can leave your questions also there, because we don't have all of the time, to answer them. And how we are using all of these questions, that we are answering these questions in the guidebook that we are preparing. So you will find your answers to your questions there, and maybe it can also help us to prepare this guidebook also according to the needs that you have. So I copied the link in a chat, and to end up a little bit, our today conversation with all of you. There was one question, what I'm really curious, Lucie, what can be your answer? And the question sounds like this: should schools require Montessori training for language specialists? What do you think?
Uh, I will, my personal experience, I think they should require the orientation courses. And at the same time, I think there should be the Montessori guide should go through some L2 training. For me, this is a two-way street. And if the L2 specialist, or however you want to call them, go through the Montessori training, that's the first step, or ideally to make the two steps at the same time. Because the guide and the L2 specialist need to have common understanding. What are the needs of Montessori and what are the needs of the language learning? So that's you asked me A or B, and I told you C.
Yes, I think it's really, important to use all the materials. And we had also a question in the chat about using language materials in Czech language. So I think people from Czech Republic can easily connect with Montessori Institute Prague or with Anderlecht School, and we can really give you consultation and support. And if we have people from Slovakia, you can really reach out to Hannah from Monteplus, or Judith or Vera from Jolly Homeschool. We can really help you to navigate in all of this language learning and material preparing world. And I know that we have also a lot of people from other countries. We can also help to bring, all of this language materials to life.
Mhm.
Yeah. So our time is running out. We know that it's a hot topic. We will be waiting for your questions, and we will try to answer them. Now, I would like at first to thanks really Lucie for giving us such a wide perspective and so many practical advices how we can do all the things. in a classroom and how important it is to support multilingualism and how we benefit from it to our also personal development. So thank you, Lucie, again for being with us tonight, let's say.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
This is not the last community conversation of our project events. We will have one more missing, but this is gonna be after summer in September, because you know that every teacher deserves a good summer holidays, yes? So we wish you really good summer holidays. We will see you in September, in autumn, and we are preparing guidelines for you and also online conference. So we are happy to share what we know, because this is how we should do things. Yeah, in the Montessori community, that we share everything with everyone and be open to each of us. So as always, we are asking you to turn on your microphones and say goodbye in your own language, because this is multilingualism. Yes?
Adios.
Aujo.
Gracias.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Bye. Salamat.
Viszontlátásra!
Mm.
Thank you. Salamat.
Thank you. Salamat.
Thank you all.
Hezký večer.
Cambien.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Ma salama.